Okay, well,
Great.
yes,
Let's,
move on to the next section of our event here, the main event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
would you prefer to sit or stand while you speak?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think, let's see. Just right there.
Where you want me to sit?
Oh yeah, just right in front here so people can see you. Pat, can you spotlight Marlena? I wanted to ask you to do that for Martin halfway through. I thought of it too late. Yeah, go ahead and get started if you'd like to.
Am I, is this, do I need to adjust anything or are we good?
Let me see.
Oh, I can see
I can
myself.
see you.
Never
Yep.
mind. Okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Marlena Jareaux, and I am the executive director of the newest history nonprofit in the county. And that history nonprofit is called Howard County Lynching, Truth, and Reconciliation Incorporated. We got formed when I heard Jocelyn P. Milnick's name and everything. We actually got formed in the year 2019 by an act of the General Assembly by resolution that was introduced due to the efforts of primarily, the primary responsible on that was, I believe was Jocelyn P. Milnick. In our county, we had Terry Hill and we had Atterbury sign on to that as sponsors also for that. And what got formed was a state commission on lynching and in Maryland. I'm not going to do a lot of talking about the state commission and everything. I'll just say that what they're supposed to be doing is both finding truth and then fostering truth and then reconciliation activities in all the places in the state of Maryland in which a lynching did occur, in which a documented lynching occurred. The state commission then formed its definitions, I'll just say, of what that encompassed, what time periods and so forth. Our organization got formed. We were also just an ad hoc group when we started. There were some people that came from the state. They came to the Owen Brown Village Center a couple years ago, and they came to us. We were actually one of the last jurisdictions that they came to, which I'll tell you more about that in a second, why that's significant. They came to us and they said, well, so they gave this presentation and told us all these wonderful things that, were happening. And they basically couched it as, so do you guys want to, join? Do you guys want to have something to do with this or not? We thought we'd come to you and ask, do you want to do something boots on the ground, with this, for Howard County? Now I'm going to pause here for a second and say that I already knew when the news came out that this, in 2019 again, that there was going to be the state lynching commission. I already saw all over Howard County on social media in particular from some very surprising names that I'm going to decline to state who they are. But there were some very surprising names of people that had no problem putting their names onto things in our county on social media and to basically say that, why are we doing, this? We don't have anything to see here because, well, Columbia, Rouse, no slavery, kumbaya, it's all kumbaya and everything. We don't have that set of issues. And then by the same token, when you look at Ellicott City, most history in Ellicott City focuses around, the Ellicotts, Joseph George, the Ellicotts. And Ellicott, that was, Quaker, anti-slavery, abolitionist. So nothing to see here, folks. And so as a person, that was me, that I used to do some things that I'm also not going to talk about today, everything once upon a time, involving looking at politics and looking at systems. I am a systems person. I'm a creative person, but I'm also a systems person. I'm a person that analyzes. I look to see, especially if I think of, I can see people that I care about going to disturb something. I like to look and see what is interconnected and what's interrelated to it. Oftentimes there are things that you can't see. You don't see the money. You don't see the the back deals that are on file somewhere. Everything. These are the things that make what you're thinking that you're looking at this one thing over here, And then, but you're not aware that there's like three things operating right here in the background that are intermingled and interconnected. And if you really zoom out, you'll see that there's a ball here that's multifaceted of things connected. So in that organizational meeting, the question was asked, so does anybody, do you guys want to, after giving the presentation, do you want to do something? Is there, and no one raised their hand is what happened, everything. I was somebody that was researching history by this time. I found this wonderful, remarkable story about somebody in Howard County history from the time that slavery existed in the state of Maryland, who, when I discovered her story, and it was not hard to find her story, but when I found her story, I just was in awe. I just remember, I just said to myself, oh my gosh, I can't, why, and first thing, why don't I know this person? How come, why? Her name is Louisa. Okay. I was like, how do I not know Louisa's story? What in the world? How could this be at the place that I live? This is amazing story for what this woman did. My gosh, the power of what how she fought off successfully. Not once, but twice. That's the other thing too about her. Just real quickly, she was somebody who was, that's what trapped me into the story. And I just had to know more. She was somebody who had actually been born free. And then she got caught up into somebody's system, everything. Somebody died. She got caught into somebody's system who thought that they could take advantage of the fact that they perceived that she didn't have power, that her and her family did not have power. And that person, one of the people in the family, essentially enslaved her. And the fight that transpired just enthralled me. I just had to know more when I saw this 9 years later and everything. So that's how I got into, the realm. And yes, at that meeting, then I raised my hand because I knew that for this county, I said, no, this can't be left to chance. This can't be, we can't just keep on doing this of just these just these assumptions about what things, that what's really going on, assumptions about what is the truth about things. I had by that time already known stuff that I knew was going to be in the book that I'm writing that I can't seem to get to finish the book because I'm doing all this other stuff, everything. But I just knew, and so, that it had to be done, everything stuff. So with the support of some other very nice people in the county, who also agreed and everything else. So I raised my hand and said, well, all I know is that it needs to happen. So yes, we're going to say yes. We fast forward and then we became a nonprofit in order to enter the realm in the way to really be able to fight. And I say fight because being able to tell even accurate Black history in this county, and that is what I tend to focus on, and our nonprofit does. What started off with just being that it was just supposed to look at the lynching examination in the county, because by the way, it wasn't just one. That's what people were they were trying to just have it be that we just have this one to look at, just Jacob Henson. That's the only person that we have to look at here in the county. And then people unbelievably were saying things like, well, okay, yeah, he was adjudged to be guilty. Yeah, he was lynched and everything else, but he was adjudged to be guilty for having killed somebody. And so, okay, yeah, they dragged him from the jail and before and everything, but what's the big deal? I mean, he was adjudged to be guilty. And it's just like, when you just 2019, seeing this array of all these people from these surprising people that were saying things like that. And it was just like, this is, okay, and everything. So we were getting all kinds of resistance, and we still do get resistance. I don't think that we get the same degree of articulated resistance as we did when we entered the realm. But the more that we were showing the accurate truth about history in the county, and I'm going to say this about history. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard phrases like, well, the history is told from the perspective, the victor is always the one that gets to tell the story. That's just the way it is. I heard somebody say that, and it drove me crazy to hear, especially with her position that she has in the county. It drove me crazy to hear her say that. My counter to it is that, well, yes, people can, it is the case of oftentimes that that the victor is the person who got to tell the story and got to write the story. But what they don't say with that is because the victor had the power to tell and write the story and to get that story uplifted, to get that story published, to get that story into the curriculum, to have those kind of stories and that kind of history be the thing that people were going to then hear, the thing that's the kind of history that, when, as we all know, history is a graduation requirement. I gave a presentation to groups of county school students at their last professional day on Friday when they had off and they were listening, deciding who they wanted to listen to for extracurricular kind of stuff. And I was giving a presentation and it was around, I was very candid about the fact and told people that, look, I'm the first to tell you, when I was in school, I went to Wild Lake High School in Columbia. That's where I graduated from. My son went to Hammond High School in the county. I'll be the first to tell people that when I went to school and everything and for history, I treated it was a graduation requirement for me too. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I couldn't see myself in the books that were being, so it never really captivated me. It didn't really interest me, which is, so it was seeing this other stuff and seeing fights, seeing people that when they saw something wasn't right, and that individual they went to go and do in order to try to make something that was wrong, that they believed was wrong, and to make it right. So that's a little bit about how we got into the realm, how I got here. And what I know that I'm supposed to talk about tonight is about I was asked to be on a public spaces commission. This was what's important for me to say from the outlook is that some people think that this was the work that we did, that this was the first public spaces commission in Howard County. It was not. I've been told not to call it a successor commission, but we were essentially a successor commission to the first round. That executive order, which was in 2021 to create that was unbelievably only set up to only last for 9 months in a county that has such a rich and storied history about slavery, such a rich history about people's rights being taken from them in that way. And when I say people's rights being taken, I'm not just talking about people who were enslaved in our county. I'm talking about people who were free Blacks that are in our county who, when it came time for them to be, how do I want to say this? When it came time for them to be, if they were charged with the same exact crime of larceny for the same dollar amount that made the charge rise to the level of larceny. There's a man that was here in Howard County named Daniel Hawkins. Daniel? Yeah. And he was a Black man, free Black. And in 1862, while the Civil War was raging on, this man got charged with larceny in our county. And he was free, but his punishment then, while the Civil War was raging on, a judge to be guilty here in this county, his sentence was to be sold into slavery. And he was sold into slavery for 18 months by a man named Mr. Legere, is who bought him for $40. We have the calculation, we have the write-up done, it was done, the sale happened at the courthouse. The courthouse that was just recently, I'm trying not to say abandoned, but for the new facility and everything, but the historic courthouse, here in Howard County, that's up on top of the hill, there on Mount Misery, everything and stuff that sometimes people call it. Yeah, that was there. You're not seeing history like this. You're not seeing, and for that story, I can give you 15 others easily off the top of my head, of things. So these are the things that that make us, we're trying to get these stories, get the history out to the people who need it. We want it to get to the next generation. We're trying to get it to the teachers so that they can tell this history of right here, not the history way over down in Mississippi somewhere, not the history that's way, down in, in New Orleans and, no, history that's right here that people don't know about because there are still people that don't even know, they don't even realize that this is the South. They don't even, this was, this is and was the South, everything. So anyway, so we're this, so we got formed after the 2021 commission finished. They issued their final report to the county. A few months went by. There are some of us that were waiting for that final report, because we really wanted to hear what was, what was going to happen with this, what they decided is that commission. And when it finally did come out, then, and that was wonderful and all, but we didn't see that what was supposed to happen was that the commission was supposed to talk about like, okay, so what do we do about the buildings in the county, public spaces that are named for people that may have a history that is, I'll just say objectionable to us today. That's the best way to say it. They were very much, and I do agree with the sentiment and the saying that they were men of their time, since we're talking about mostly men, everything. Yes, they were men of their time, but the question about what it is that we value as a society, that's always changing. That's always in flux. So should, and so usually is the naming of our public structures. Public structures get named, public structures get renamed all the time. This is nothing, whatever, but the last commission skipped past it and didn't look at it at all. There was no recommendations from them, and that's what was on the executive order, that's what they were supposed to do. So a few of us were making a fuss about this. And then that is how another commission, got formed, I'm sure, to just kind of, okay, yes, we realized that that there was a job that was supposed to be done that got undone. Great, everything. So here comes our commission. And then in 2022, public, executive order gets created. A little bit about those, just so that people understand. The commissions that are formed by the county executive per the charter, that is a separate type of commission that has a maximum life of 18 months. They can only exist per the charter for 18 months. That is different. There are other commissions that are created through county council. Those are different than what these kinds are. So with that said, we go along our merry way. I don't remember how many we started with. I only know how many we ended with. I think we started with maybe, I don't know, 18 or 19, something like that. By the time we ended, we had 10, people in our commission. And that's for various reasons that I won't get into today. I know that one of the things that was circulated around on the last email that I looked at for this meeting, advertising this meeting, was this report that I'm seeing in front of me that says miscellaneous building assets report, and Cochran was put into it. So I know that that's the one that was circulated around with this round of email. This is just a subsection of a larger report. The larger report is the final report of our commission is 101 pages. It is a substantial report. It is a report that we generated when we ran out of time. I'll tell you a little bit, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that too, of what was going on with our commission, what's contained, a little bit about what's in this report, because I know that some of the things that, for one of the reasons I was asked to come here is for two reasons. Number one is to talk a little bit about some of this history that is reflected in here, but I don't want to just read it. I really want you all to read this report. If you're interested at all about our county's desegregation history, you will find surprises that are in the report. Surprises from the things that you tend to see for other places where you are looking, where you may be looking and seeing and getting exposed to some of the history of what happened in our county. Most people who know anything about desegregation in this county know the whole thing about that it was delayed, that it was, just stalling and all that stuff. So that's not new information, and that's certainly in our report as well, that the stalling that happened. Here you have Brown versus Board of Education that says, okay, so there's two decisions that come out with Brown versus Board of Education. The first one is the decision of the court. That's in 1954. And then there's a second, in that report, in that decision, it says, and gives people license then that they take. And everything is, just hang on a second so that our court can make some decisions about and hear some additional comments from people who want to make briefs to us to talk about, what the problems are going to be, so we can hear all this, so that we can decide how we want to issue out that final decision about desegregation and what needs to happen here in our country now that we've decided what we did in 1954. That decision comes out in 1955. And when it does, and if you can imagine just for a second, if you can place yourself and try to place yourself into the shoes of anybody, I'm sure that some people in this room even were alive during this time. Of course, that, for when the desegregation of schools happened. I was not, I was born in 67, everything, but my mom was, everything. If you try to put yourself in the shoes of what this, when I say the following, of what this must have felt like for people on both sides of the aisle, though. On the one side, you have people who are going to Black schools in the county here that are inferior. They're not getting the same kind of funding. They're not being treated the same way at all. The teachers aren't being treated the same way. The facilities are not the same way. They are, so they have been waiting. They knew that this was happening. They've been following along, and most times people will think that, okay, well, the judge said this now, and now that this has been declared and said that this is going to be the law of the land, and it was, this is the law of the land. But in 1955 is when, in that decision is when it said, they said, well, and I forget, and I don't have it in front of me for what exactly, and I like to give the exact same words that were used, but I'll paraphrase here, that they basically said, you should do it with all due speed. But they didn't articulate what that speed should be. And I know that, and so part of that is that after getting the briefs that they got, which, well, a lot of people don't know about what our county did and what our state specifically did in regards to that. How our state was fighting that, how our state was in the Supreme Court doing that. That's not something that most people know or talk about. Those records are all in Annapolis that I viewed, everything to see, and you could see like you could just see you saw the fighting, you saw with the State Board of Education, in Maryland doing, saying what they're saying about this is going to be a nightmare, this is going to be a such and such and whatever else. But then you see that even within Maryland that you have this jurisdiction over here is doing this. Here you have Baltimore City doing this. You have Montgomery County and you have Baltimore County and you've got Eastern Shore is trying to do this. It might surprise you all to think, for all the things that people think that they know about the Eastern Shore, might surprise people to actually know, if you actually look at history, to see things like, first of all, how many free Blacks, relative to their population, that is, in terms of percentage, how many free Blacks were over on the Eastern Shore relative to what the percentage was here in Howard County. Our county here in 1860, when the 1860 census came out, we had 24% of our population was enslaved. That's not insignificant. That's not insignificant at all. 24%, 24 point something percent, everything here. We ranked, and I'd have to look it up to see, which one it is. Out of the 22 jurisdictions at that time, we were like, we weren't in good standing. We weren't in the good side of stats. Not at all. We were fighting tooth and nail. We were the county that, when it came time for voting for President Lincoln, anybody here know how many votes we gave to vote yeah, see, she knows because one. This county gave one vote to
Like a singular person?
one person who I wish I could find out who that one person is. Well, I want to know who that one person is. One. Yes, one. So, yeah, one.
Yeah, we're, okay. You guys close at 9?
We close at 9.
Oh.
I have to set up a class at 8:30.
Sorry for everybody here, but they're telling us something, so.
I just wanted to give you a little heads up.
Cool, thanks.
Excuse me.
Yep, no.
Sorry. There was a public service announcement that came
Yeah.
through, so.
Question.
Yeah, so yeah, so there's a lot of history here that's just not, again, I just say that that's just not, it isn't known, it isn't well known. In this report, you're going to see things like, so I'm just jump over to the report now. You'll see a lot of stuff that's in this report, even if you just look at the Cochran one. But you'll see a lot of stuff if you see in the other. And a lot of what you see, we focus, and that was very deliberate. In running the commission, of which Marg was one of my fellow commissioners here, and she was also on the research team with us. And I'm going to tell you that I made a conscious decision to make sure that this commission in particular ran categorically very different than the last commission, our predecessor commission did. And we focused on process is what we did. Yes, we have the history in there, yes, but we focus on the process. Why is that important to say? Because, well, if you're, and the last commission didn't look at it at all, not at all, unbelievably. The last commission didn't look to run it through the lens first of what's the process. How was the naming done? What was the process that was supposed to, what are the policies and processes? And that's what I oriented our commission with from day one. Okay, let's look at with this segment of, when we're deciding what work we're going to do. Okay, what are the processes? What are the policies and procedures that were in place? Schools, libraries, other buildings, streets and everything. We had to kick the streets off because there's so many streets that are named after the slavery history. We just can't even, there was no way possible. We had to immediately just strike that right off, immediately, including there are places in Columbia that are named, villages named for things that have slavery history. Again, just, yeah, there was no way that we had to do that. So we had to concentrate. Libraries, which we did. We did a small smattering of schools and then a small smattering of public spaces, public buildings, like the Cochran Center, like the East Columbia 50+ Center that had been resisted by a group of citizens. This was known, it got kicked over to our commission to ask us to run Cochran's name through it when there was community resistance to the naming of the East Columbia 50+ Library. Well, East Columbia 50+ Center, sorry. So with all of it, what we found, and this is where I'm going to take great pleasure in saying and giving the kudos for the early find on this, to find that that the buildings in our county, all the other buildings are supposed to be, at one point did have a naming process. And the credit to that goes to none other than Marg, everything, who actually was the one on our research team that found a little something that was in a newspaper clipping. And it had everything to do with, unbelievably, Cochran, everything, who did the naming, but who also talked about that there was a policy and everything else. And what he was saying was when citizens were asking for a new government building that was being built in Ellicott City, and that would be the George Howard building, everything of like when it was being built and then there was going to be naming, citizens wanted it to be named for Omar Jones, which was the county's first county executive. And it was Dr. Cochran who said, we don't name buildings for people who are alive. Game changer. Everything. So that then caused us to then immediately put our focus on, okay, so in asking our county to give us records, we want to see, okay, it seems like it might be a county, executive order from Dr. Cochran and everything else. And I'll just cut right to the chase here and just say, after 1 year of waiting for that, we were told by our county, sorry, we don't have any documents for you. We don't have any of his executive records, of his executive orders. What do you mean? No, what? He's still alive. He's our county executive. What do you mean you don't have any of his executive orders? Oh my goodness. So it was just things like this that were going on through the duration of our commission, when we were focused on running things through the policy, procedures first, and then the history second of these people that these, various things are named for. And what you'll see in that report then is the sum total of that. When we tried our best to try to we were involving the county in it, the citizens in it. It was supposed to be a public commission, a thing where people were asking, where we were involving our citizens. What history do you know? Do we have this right? So we were sending out the draft reports to people and just all this community involvement because we thought that that was supposed to be the way that you do it. That would be the right way to do it. They're public spaces. That means it's owned by us. They're our space, so. But at the end of the day, after 18 months, and it was clear that we weren't going to be able to finish this under that executive order, per the charter, we could have asked, and we did. We asked to be extended. It takes per the charter an act of the county council to do so. And that didn't happen. Everything. The clock got run down on that, everything. And so got stalled out, and now no one in the county gets to say anything about the public spaces, everything, but you do have the report. So I hope you enjoy the history that's in there. I know that with Liz Bobo, that she was here, I know that the county executive and everything, that there was this effort to try to make her, to have there be a building name for her. And I know that that was because Ken Ulman had a building name for him in between our last commission and ours. He got a building name for him, and then there was the attempt to name one for Ed Cochran. But then what I could see was that it seems like, I don't know for how long it lasts, but it seems like all naming has stopped now. I'd like to think that that's because of our report. We put out the commission report and gave it to the county executive like we're supposed to, gave them to county council, put a copy in the historical society on file with them and several repositories so that they could, so if anybody wants to see it, please go to the historical society, ask them for it. I don't know where the county has it, everything else. I don't know where they're putting records because I don't know where they put this man's executive orders either, so. So. It's on our website. If you go to HOCO, as a last ditch effort, when I saw what was going on, that I was like, this report, for all that it shows, this can't be buried. This can't be sitting in a vault anywhere. This can't be sitting under a stack of papers anywhere. This can't be, if you go to we're using our resources as a history nonprofit. They're all being hosted by us now because the county's not hosting any of it. So. Yeah, HOCO. So yeah, HOCO, HOCOLTR.org. And if you go and you'll see in the banner on the thing, you'll see public spaces or public names, public spaces. Just click on that and you'll get access to everything. Final report, the draft reports, and all for this Cochran report, if you click on it, you will see that we use 70 sources. There are 70 records that we did use because we wanted to make sure that we got this right to do justice to this. That man is still living. We tried to ask him too and everything to get access to him. We didn't get access to him. For him to, I would have loved to be able to sit down and talk with him about stuff too, but no, we got, like I said, we were blocked from quite a bit. So, in interest of we're running out of time and everything stuff, I want to leave some questions for Q&A and have them be happy, the library system. So happy to answer any questions that you all have, but please do read the report. It has implications, and that is the thing about history. History isn't as old as you think it is. A lot of the things that are fights that are going on today, they're not new fights. They actually aren't. A lot of them have their ancestors. I say their ancestors and their cousins are in history. There's very little that's new. It's just that's the way that power always works. As soon as they see you're going to make something that you've done this and you're making some headway into this, by the time that it got addressed and it has changed and a law did this and that, they already changed what they wanted to. They already changed it. And that's the way the law works. The law, by the time it does this, it's very specific then. They change something, and then what you're fighting about, then it no longer applies to that got created. That stands in time and history. It's always been that way. The power of the word may. You may do something. May do something doesn't mean you have to. Any questions? Megan?
But Ken Ulman's still alive, isn't that against the rules?
Well,
Ed Cochran.
Ed Cochran's still alive.
Is in- It's against his own policy. They named the building after
Yes.
him. My question, Marlena, and while you answer the question, while other people answer questions, I'm gonna start to clean up the chairs that people aren't sitting in. But just so you know, we did send, not in the email today and not in the email over the weekend, but in our original email about this event, we did send a link to the full report. And we will send a link to the full report in a follow-up email. But my question to you, Marlena, is why do you think the county executive chose not to extend the life of the commission, and why do you think that they weren't being forthcoming with sharing these executive, or do you have any speculation on like what they were trying to hide, what they didn't want to see?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say while you're cleaning up and putting the folding around the chairs, I'm going to say this to you to answer your question. I didn't have a conversation with Dr. Ball. And so since I didn't have a conversation with him about it, as a historian, I don't like to deal in speculation. I try not to. I try to stick with the facts. So I know that it would have taken an act of county council to extend it. And because I know that Dr. Ball didn't have the power. So I don't know why it is, but I can say this, I hope it changes. I hope that one day the people will get to answer the questions and we'll get to have their voices heard about it.
Well, thank you, Marlena. And yeah, it sounds like it's the council, but I know that the county executive has influence over the council. And so I can't help but think if he really wanted to make that happen, he could, but maybe I'm wrong. That's just my speculation.
I think it's more the county executive than the county council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the sense that I get. And so maybe I'd love to see the county actually have to address that and answer that question. To my knowledge, they haven't done that. And so thank you, Marlena, for sharing this report publicly, and hopefully they do feel the need to address it at some
Yep.
point.
Thanks for inviting me to come.
Yes, no, thank you, Yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, time management was not bad.
Oh,
but
okay.
It was a great.
The library should read one more on the back.
Oh,